Welcome to the marvelous world of poetry, the World Poetry Cafe at 100.5 FM.
Bienvenidos al mundo de la poesía, el mundo de la poesía café. Sintonízanos 100.5 FM.
The World Poetry Cafe is for you, the radio listeners, the stars of the night. Together we can create a universe of respect and love.
Bienvenue au domaine merveilleux du Café mondial des poètes, 100.5.
Halina't makinig sa kawili-wiling daigdig ng tula, ang kapehan at radyo ng mga makata ng sanlibutan.
Welcome to the World Poetry Cafe, 100.5 FM. Bienvenidos al mundo magnífico de la poesía, 100.5 FM. And we have a wonderful program today, and our guest is the illustrator of Big Bessie's Super Dart, which is in the making now, and he illustrated all the stories, and was so excited to have him on. And he also is doing a children's book of poems, and I've been looking over them, and they're really neat. So very excited about that too. And we have meet the team. Oh, I'll be doing a poem from Ed Woods. He's a pilot. He's been with World Poetry for a long time, and he's really doing amazing stuff as an author right now. And we also have some really exciting news for next week. We have a Inuit filmmaker, and that's going to be wonderful. And her film is going to be shown on Life Up North, and it will be this coming Saturday at 8 p.m. CBC. And Tiffany is going to be on next week, along with my daughter, Kara, who is part UPIC, so that's pretty exciting as well, and your sister, yes. So now I'm going to go on with the first poem, and just want to welcome everybody and thank you so much. And I'm going to go on with a poem from my book called Love Poems to the World, Dream Poetry Offerings. And these were all dream poems, and I didn't edit it or sort of smooth them out in any way, but they would come to me at 2:30 in the morning. And the basis of this one, called The Past Terrorist, which I think is good right now because it seems, it shows that people can get along together. So I'll read it now, and it's called The Past Terrorist, Gaza. I am alone in a cell, 4 small walls, dark and lonely. I was a Hamas terrorist, a freedom fighter, believing in my work, doing as I was told for the cause of freedom, launching the bombs, falling on Israel, trying to live a normal life. One day I found a friend on the internet. He was an Israeli on the other side. Our friendship grew. He became my brother. I could not let him down, could not launch the bombs to hurt him and his family. I quit and tried to leave Gaza, now caught in this miserable cell, death staring me in the face, pacing back and forth. It is waiting for me. My message to all: think about the people you harm, injure, or kill. Think about the animals that die in terror, no fault of their own. Take the blinders off. Observe the birth of a new way of being. Put down your arms, negotiate, work toward peace. Let the past go, embrace a better future. I sit in my cell facing death. This is my last message to the world. Goodbye. And I was doing classes online and in person on creative dreaming. And I saw a sort of a very brief note about this. And then that same night, I had the dream. And I had an interesting follow-up because I saw a mini doc about this young man who was condemned to death in Gaza. But he had a blood brother relationship on the internet with a young man in Israel. And this was a lucid dream. So I was partly with this young man and partly myself, visited and taking his message for the world. I still remember the great feelings of sorrow that we had for the innocent animals. And it turns out that his brother, Israeli brother, blood brother, was able to get him out. And I even got a note from him after sending him this poem. So I think my message is to this lucid dream, because it was so curious to be there. It was like I was in the cell with him and he was dictating to me. And I think the message is that there's all room for change, even in the most difficult of people. But we have to keep positive and think as well. So thank you for listening to that poem. And the next one is Ed Woods. And he has been with World Poetry a long time. He was a pilot, and we're going to be featuring him more as time goes on. So this is a poem from The Literary Connection, Volume 2, My Canada. Freedom, it's time to bring in the harvest. Waves of corn stalks sway in the winds of freedom. I clutch corn in my hands, my corn grown on fertile land. My land, a glorious crashed crop, my cash. 2 years have passed from the sounds of terror, the rattling chains, pulse drumming, to the crack of vicious whips, reminders never to heal. Fear-filled moonlighting in swamps, a plan of escape from the south, afraid the boss man would swoop and kill if snakes and alligators miss their chance. Images of boxcar on steel rails, traveling through the deep, thicker trails. Never the same route twice, a worn pathway, a risk to avoid. Thousands of miles of fearful steps, breathing misty air. Every heartbeat pounded in my ears, salt tearing my eyes. Sometimes crying for relief from the blur, sometimes crying for the relief from slavery, crouching at the least strange sound. A twig breaking brought panic. A meow became the lion's roar. Life entrusted to strangers of a different color, celebrating right to freedom, left to the last whistle stop at Upper Canada, a place where I can now own land and forever not be owned, the property mine to farm for my benefit, cash in my hands for my keepsake, earned and banked for myself, to help fund the next safe haven along the Underground Railway. And then it says below, it's based on freedom sought by slaves escaping slavery in the South in the 1800s. And it just tells a little bit about how they went. Over 30,000 slaves and Underground Railroad escaped to various points across the Canadian border from Nova Scotia to British Columbia. So thank you, Ed, for that. And thank you for all the tremendous amount of books you've been sending me. And I hope I do justice to them. So next on the line, I want to thank all the people in the world that listen to us, mostly through Mixcloud right now, but all the people in the world. And I'm still in touch with a gentleman in Patagonia who's part-time in Argentina, and he is a poet, and he may be sending some poems to be read on the show. When he's in Patagonia, the internet is very difficult to achieve, but I think it would be fun to have him on and appreciate that. And that gives us another country, 159 countries off and on listen to us. So that's wonderful. I'd like to introduce our team. And first up, of course, is Victor Schwartzman, technician magnifico, wonderful technician, and wonderful world poetry supporter. He just is an absolute hero and a gem. And then Sharon Rowe, and Victor has been reading her stories on the radio every week, some of them over and over again, not all at once, but some of them. And then we have our resident poet, rhyming poet, Kelly Montgomery. And after that, we have our wonderful guest, Nicholas Curl, illustrator for Sharon's new book, and with his books of children's poems. And Sharon says he has been so wonderful. So I would like to ask Victor to take it away, and Kelly Montgomery and Sharon's story, The Greenie Stories. Oh no, Tommy Two's addiction. By the way, he's still somewhat addicted.
Why, thank you very much, Ariadne and Kelly Montgomery. Would you have an opening poem from yourself for us, please?
I do. This one is about Kurt Cobain, lead singer for the rock group Nirvana, who unfortunately took his life. This is titled Something I Wish Kurt Had Done. It's called Stay in the Game, Grow Through the Pain. You shouted of the pain. I experienced some of the same. You talked about other things, a space of recovery in the game. You had passion to spare. In your songs, you were true. Your voice had a quality, always sounding quite new. I imagine angels rushing in too late before you pull the trigger. Perhaps in your death, your message is so much bigger.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Kelly Montgomery.
You're welcome.
And now, you're welcome. I like that story, that poem.
Thanks.
And by golly, I think I'll read Sharon's story next. This is called Tommy Two's Addiction. This is from what? What, Sharon?
Yeah, she says Tommy Two's sleeping. He's got his ear.
Thank goodness Tommy Two's sleeping, so he won't jump on the keyboard or the computer right now. So I'm going to read this story. It's a great story. We've read it before. It's a lot of fun and it's very imaginative. So here it is, and it's full of surprises. Tommy Two's Addiction. Tommy Two, Sharon's extra-large Bengal cat, was addicted to a green treat called Crazy Critters. He wanted to eat Crazy Critters day and night. He would wake up Ariadne, Mommy Two, several times a night, howling at the top of his cat lungs for them. Meow, meow, I want more and more. Meow, now. Well, Mommy Two would be very grumpy. I want to sleep. Night, night, she would yell, and then the next morning she'd be very tired and cross. Mommy Two said the label says only 12 little crazy critters a day or a night, not the whole container, but Tommy Two didn't want to listen. Sharon, Mommy One, looked closely at the big container with the lid on it, and she said, hey, those things are moving around inside. I think they're alive. Sharon was getting ready to go to class, and Big Bessie, her handy dart, was picking her up when all of a sudden the plastic container burst open, and the green crazy critters came scrambling out. Tommy Two was so surprised that he raced after them as they ran as fast as their little green legs could carry them away. They raced out the door, they raced down the hallway, into the elevator, and into the lobby, through the outside door, with Tommy Two the cat still hot on their trail. They almost tripped the handy dart driver over, who was waiting for Sharon and did not expect a whole bunch of running crazy critters and a big cat running after them. They ran outside, rushed up the handy dart ramp, having a hard time getting up the stairs since they were so little, but that hungry cat was after them. And when they all got to Sharon's day program and they rushed into her class, the staff person said to the driver and Sharon, after taking just one look, "Take those green crazy critters home and that cat now." Well, back they all went, out of Big Bessie, through the door, down the hallway, into the next elevator and down Sharon's hallway, laughing all the way, with a tired cat and a tired Sharon with them. The door to Sharon's condo was open, and they rushed in, still laughing, and jumped into the container. They laughed and laughed at Tommy, too, did the crazy critters. Tommy, too, was too tired to say anything, even a yowl, and he never ran after the crazy critters again. And Big Bessie tooted, "Good riddance. Well, I never." And that is the story of how Tommy, too, hopefully never ate the crazy critters again, because they are alive. And Mummy, too, was finally able to get some sleep and everyone could relax. And Sharon writes, and this is by Sharon Rowe, R-O-W-E, "Thanks to my illustrator, Nick, for the name Crazy Critters." And this is an end of another great adventure and this book, and see you next time. So that's from Sharon Rowe, the author of the Big Bessie Stories, a 5-star book on Amazon, a great story. What do you say, Sharon?
What do you? Oh, she's smelling from ear to ear. What, baby? Meow. Oh, he said meow too. He said thank you too. Yeah. Oh, that's good, Sharon. Oh, that's so
Okay.
good.
There you go. Thank you very much. And now back to Ariadne.
Okay. So I just wanted to give a warm welcome to Nicholas Curl. He has been with us, and he wrote in his bio, which I'll do in a moment, but he's been with us and he's just been a great friend and a blessing to us. And Linda from the Surrey Public Library said, "Oh, Nick is wonderful." She was reading his story on Zoom, no, online at the library. One of his, oh yeah, Big Bessie fights the virus or kills the virus or something like that. That was the first one. This story was is the last story in the book, and it's going to editing. Hopefully, Laura, our formatter, will. Okay, Sharon, bye-bye. Bye, Nick. Bye, Nick. Look, wait. Uh-oh. Yeah, okay. She's going to do her iPad. Anyway, that hopefully in the next week, Laura will have it done. And I'm asking all the editors to go over it with a fine-tooth comb because it's been so haphazard lately and with everything. So I'm sure there's a number of them. But Linda said to say hello to you and her daughter Melanie as well. They think you're great. And thank you so much for being such a good friend to Sharon. So I'm going to do your bio right now, and maybe you can talk about your book and read some of your poems. And Nicholas Curl, our wonderful guest, special guest today, illustrator, cartoonist. Nicholas has made a career in electrical engineering. He has been involved in designing and testing software and hardware for defense, communications, consumer products, healthcare, and insurance companies. Nicholas' engineering career spans from 1991 to 2012. He has an MSEE degree from Georgia Tech of Technology and an MBA degree from Georgia State University. He is both an animator and a musician. He enjoys using animation software to create animated poems and music videos. Nicholas created his first animated poem, New Friend, in 2014. He has created several other animated poems that teach children important social concepts such as friendship and helping those who are in need of assistance. As a guitarist, he enjoys creating songs and music videos. He welcomes opportunity to collaborate with other musicians of all skill levels. Nicholas met Ariadne Sawyer through Facebook in 2018 when he posted one of his poems on a Facebook poetry group page. Through Ariadne, Nicholas met Sharon. In 2018, he created 2 animated shorts to promote Sharon's Big Bessie Stories book. In 2020, he was asked to provide illustrations for Sharon's second Big Bessie book, Big Bessie Super Dart. He says, "It was an honor and privilege to be asked by Sharon to support the development of her second Big Bessie book. I will forever be grateful to Sharon, Ariadne, and the rest of the Big Bessie team for this wonderful opportunity. Sharon is a beacon of hope to all who strive to persevere in the face of adversity." So we're so honored, and Sharon was so excited. We've had a very extremely harrowing week on a whole number of levels, but we're doing okay. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome Nicholas Curl, illustrator of the new Big Bessie book, and to the show. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you so much for having me back.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. Well, can you tell us about we always loved, and Sharon always loved, your animated shorts. And can you tell us a little bit about your new adventure and what you've been doing with the poems? I was able to glance through some of them, and they're really neat. I was wondering, what age level are you looking at? And the other thing I wanted to say was, we had a children's poet as well, and she got her book of poetry for children into Walmart. And so I was thinking, maybe to connect the two of you, you could talk about that once you have the book ready, or whatever, when you're ready. She might have some tips. So welcome again, Nicholas. I'll let you talk now.
Well, thank you for the introduction. And yes, I'd be looking forward to speaking to her about her experiences working with Walmart. A book of children's poems, and they're actually little stories that just happen to have rhyming in them. And so they are based on the animated shorts that I created. And the animation is, I think, targeted for very young children, probably preschool, maybe kindergarten at most. But I think that with the kind of things that children are exposed to today, I'm thinking a first grader would probably find it boring. So the pictures themselves, I think, would be good for very young children. And I had in my mind the idea that the poems would be read by an adult, either a parent or a teacher. The child would follow along looking at the pictures, and some of the words or the phrases might be something new to the child. So that's where the adult could come in and help to explain it. But that's kind of the idea I had behind the level of the audience that I was targeting.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Well, it sounds really good. Do you want to read a couple of samples for us? And then I'll ask Kelly Montgomery. He's also a great co-host as well. And also Victor may have some questions.
So I decided to title the book, Hello, My Friend.
Oh, nice.
And I think that I probably read some of these on your show before. But let me see if I can find one that might be a little bit new. In fact, I think what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and repeat the very first poem that I had created, and that was New Friend.
Good, yeah.
Okay, so here we go. While walking through my yard one day, I chanced upon a bug. So sad her face, I thought aloud. Excuse me, I think she needs a hug. With utmost care, I reached down there to lift her way up high. But quick as a wink, less than a blink, she flew off towards the sky. And as I turned to walk away, I felt a tiny tap. I turned around and there I found the little bug was back. But now her frown turned upside down. Her heart was on the mend. So with great joy I cried, oh boy, I found myself a friend.
Oh, that's so neat. I think Sharon really liked that one too.
Yeah, that's a little poem about a ladybug.
Yeah, so cute. Yeah. Yeah,
And
Sharon's been reading books called ABC books, and they're really for young children, but she's doing pretty well in reading them and also finding words everywhere, which is really cool. But it kind of
Fantastic.
reminds me of that kind of thing of what you're doing with them. because there's little cute cartoon pictures with them as well in the book series. So
Yeah, so
she does
that's what I'm looking at as a format where I can put down a few sentences of the poem on one side of the page and then slip in a snapshot of the video that corresponds to those words next to it. And I kind of alternate back and forth down the page, but I don't know if that might be too confusing to a child or not. So I'd be open to any kind of advice on a good way to structure that. Having an animated poem allows me to grab all kinds of snapshots to place there to kind of get the story across with an image.
That's right. The book that she's reading, she got for Christmas. So, but they have the picture above the words.
So
And
did you receive that one page that I sent you?
I did, yes, yes.
So you see what I'm talking about, where
Yeah.
the picture alternates.
Yeah, I think that's good too. I was just suggesting that, either way, but I think that's what you did was really good too. Kelly, do you have a question? I know you always have some good questions.
Thank you. I got lots of questions. First one, don't want to get too esoteric and ethereal, but you just talk a bit about the spirit of creativity, where you get your inspiration from, to come from, just where does that spirit of creativity come from?
Well, the underlying theme in all of the poems I try to get across is to teach children about these social concepts like making friends or helping people in need, just to become a better citizen. And so there are all kinds of opportunities, and I just happen to like the idea of looking at the animal world as a way of getting the ideas across and capturing the child's mind. And so that's why every story has something in there, a ladybug, a cricket, a spider, something, and they're usually in some small level of distress, and someone comes along to help them out. And that's really the whole idea. It's a very simple concept, but it's designed to encourage children to be more open to helping those and to become friends.
And one more quick question, humor. Would you say that you value humor quite a bit in your stuff?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I'm not very humorous myself, but I do try to incorporate that in there, usually in the nature of the story. For example, I have one where my next door neighbor is a cricket, and she's out and about mowing her lawn and planting her flowers and things of that nature. So I find that kind of humorous, to give those kinds of human qualities to the creature. And I think that helps the child also to relate, because they see those kind of qualities in these creatures. And so it might make it easier for them to relate those qualities in themselves and other humans.
Thank you.
Well, I was just going to say, the lady that did a book of children's poems, she lives in the US as well. Walmart they didn't publish it or anything. They just, she applied to get them in the stores in the United States. So it was more, more shelf space, they didn't promote it other than take the book. So, but that was interesting.
Ariadne, maybe if she could contact you, and then maybe you can give her my contact information, and we could chat. And because I'd be very much interested. I've never gone through the process of trying to publish a book. So anyone who has any experience, that would be invaluable to me. So that's just something to think about.
Yeah, that would be good. She's a nice lady, and I did some spiels for her book and promoted her book. She was on the show. And I also was on her book launch, which was Zoomed as well, and needed to talk to her about that. So I'll look back and see, she's really nice, and I'll look back and see if she would be interested in just sort of communicating with you through the process anyway. And maybe ideas from marketing, because of course that's the other factor, right? Marketing factor.
Yeah.
And I think some of her, if I remember correctly, the stories that she has in some ways are similar. You know, they're all sort of good feeling stories, which is really nice, and especially in a world where there's so many unpleasant ones. So, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah. So, how big a book would it be? And would you also stream it or put it through cartoons or?
Well, they are animated shorts now.
Mhm.
How large they would be depends on how much space on the page is taken up with the words and the pictures. But I think I have something like oh, let me see. I have, I think, 8 poems. So I know I would need to create a few more. I have some ideas for a few more, but as I begin to put them to the page, then I'll have a better feel for how large the book would be.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Well, that sounds really good. Victor, do you have a question?
Well, I would, accept I've never seen any of Nicholas's works, so maybe he could talk about the style he uses and how he adapts it to Sharon's story and give us a visual idea. Also, where can we see some of your work? The website that we would go to.
Well, I have a YouTube channel,
Oh, wow.
and I believe that your World Poetry page has a link to it. But I can get that information to you offline here. It's a YouTube channel. It has all of my animated poems, my music videos, some early, not so good stuff, and some a little bit better. My goal was really just to try and get stuff out there and get some feedback, try to collaborate with folks. I'm
Mhm.
hoping that people would look at that and see, hey, you know, this guy looks like he's got something going on here. Let's see if there's something we can do together. So I kind of tried to get stuff out there as quickly as I could. So they're
Mhm.
not polished, but
Okay.
I think they get the idea across there. And
Okay,
yeah,
can I ask what your last name is again? Because I missed that and I'd like to look it up.
it's
Nicholas.
Curl, Curl.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's really good to have that on that YouTube because it gives people a maybe if I find it, I can send it to that lady too so she could relate to it.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, that's really good. Do you have any other poems handy or you just want to
Well,
talk about the future or
do we have a couple of minutes for some live music?
oh, did you find some?
I will play some.
we
Cool.
absolutely have time for live music. You're our sole guest today, Nicholas, so by all means, give us a treat.
Okay, forgive me if I'm a little bit out of tune here. Well, I guess it's close enough. All right, so sound check here. Is that too loud?
It's fine, I think.
You can hear that fine?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can hear it just fine. Sorry, I had myself muted. No, you sound fine. The guitar sounds good. Let's hear
Okay.
it.
Let's go ahead. All my bags are packed. I'm ready to go. I'm standing here outside your door. I hate to wake you up to say goodbye. But the dawn is breaking, it's early morn. Taxi's waiting, he's blowing his horn. Already I'm so lonesome, I could die. So kiss me and smile for me. Tell me that you'll wait for me. Hold me like you'll never let me go. 'Cause I'm leaving on a jet plane. Don't know when I'll be back again. Oh, babe, I hate to go. Yeah, I messed up there a little bit, but that's a song by John Denver called Leaving on a Jet Plane.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I recognize
Very
that one.
nice.
That's
Good
nice.
job.
And I was accompanied by female vocalists. I don't know if you could hear her. That was my girlfriend, Retta Simmons.
Oh, well, congratulate her. Yeah, we could hear her. It sounded nice.
Thank you so much. A little bit of stage fright there.
Well, that's what we're all about. Yeah, I think we're just doing well, just getting by right now. But it's really nice to hear the music too.
So that's what I've been doing is working on the animation, working on some new songs, and just
Mhm.
having a great time. It's just a lot of fun.
Oh,
Just a lot of fun.
that's great. Yeah. Yeah, when Linda was showing that Big Bessie, what was it? After the virus, all the folks in the room, a lot of very challenged people. Anyway, they clapped when she was showing her reading it, and they clapped. They really loved that. It's so nice to have people so supportive of, like Sharon said, especially able people. And I want to thank you for that and for your support as well. So,
Absolutely. It's just been a privilege and an honor. I've said that before, but I really mean that.
oh,
And
thank
I would just like to say that, when I posted that poem on that Facebook poetry page and you responded to it, in all honesty, I think that was, and now looking back, it was really a life-changing event for me. And
you.
it's just been a wonderful adventure since then.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's super. Yeah.
So, again, my gratitude and thanks to yourself and Sharon, Victor and Linda, everybody on the Big Bessie team, and all of those folks who've supported Sharon, and of course, all of your listeners out there. Where would we be without your listeners, right?
That's
Here,
right.
here.
Yeah, he's here. That's right. Kelly, do you have another question or are you good?
Sure. Um, yeah, if you can only pick one thing to do, what would that be? You do quite a few things, so I'm just curious, what would you settle on there?
Well, and I'm going back more years than I care to admit. Back in 1983, when I completed my Bachelor's of Science degree, I decided to choose to go to college and to work, start a career as an electrical engineer. But had things gone a different way, I would have loved to get into music. There were many, many years where my guitar just kind of sat in its case. And now I'm just trying to make up for lost time. And like I say, it's a blast. I'm by no means a professional, learning every day, but it's something I really enjoy, the creative process of making your own songs and possible opportunities to collaborate with other folks. Just that, but I would say that is an area that I would have loved to have gotten into, and I think that I could have done well had I been given the right situation early on in life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Sharon really wants to do more for especially able people. A lot of them, it's interesting, a lot of autistic people have, and their caregivers or family members have contacted us, and we got a letter from one, and her son was not greatly autistic, but he was just absolutely suicidal. And Sharon said
My,
sent her her book, and she said that just really touched the chord. So I think before COVID, we were doing workshops and going around to old folks' homes and or retirement homes and getting their input, their poetry and storytelling and sharing storytelling. And of course, we don't do that anymore because of COVID, and we're probably overprotective, but we're trying to keep uh, healthy. And but one of her things that she'd like to do is do a Zoom uh, for challenged people where they could, with help from the caregivers or whatever, they could read or do some music or, do some stories and things like that. Not all of them could do it, but I think there's so little things for them that that's a good goal to work towards. But of course, we're not ready for that right now.
yeah, that would be wonderful. I think that would be just fantastic to try to get them involved in something that they can draw pleasure from. And more importantly, that they can make some kind of a contribution in their own way.
Yes, that's right. Well, we were trying to do that with the workshops, but of course with COVID, it all kind of all went to a halt. But Zoom might be another alternative, I suppose. But I think that's down in the future. But there's so little resources for, especially as Sharon calls it, especially abled people. And a lot of them are just sort of warehoused, and but they all have a creative spark in it. We've seen it over and over again. It takes nurturing like anything else.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, this is so terrific to have you on, and I can't tell you how grateful I am to you for your illustrations and your so kindness, where you would say, can Sharon approve this story, approve that story? I guess if you could tell us a little bit about illustrating Sharon's book, it might be interesting for the listeners as well.
Yes, well, I'll tell you, probably the toughest thing about it is deciding which image to come up with because, there's so many for every story. So that's always been a challenge, go through the story, understand what's happening there, and then try to pick one that will capture the reader's attention. But because there's so many of them.
Yeah, that's
And
right. Yeah.
it would be like it would be so interesting if you could animate the entire story. But that would take a team of animators and it's a
Yeah,
very tedious process.
that's right.
So yeah, but that's the thing is to go through and try to capture what's the essence of the story into a particular picture. And so that's what I tried to do. Try to
Yeah,
capture the most interesting part that I thought
yeah, that's right.
could explain what's going on.
Yeah. Well, it'll be out in Kindle, and eventually, if we have another project of it, maybe Victor could be a voice for the auditory book, which would be fun as well. But
Absolutely.
we gotta stagger through the the one coming now, which has had lots of challenges. But
Well, one step at a time, one step at a time.
that's right. Yeah. So that's really good. But that's also, I think, you're having Sharon sign off on every illustration meant terrifically for her. She just appreciated that so much.
Well, that makes me very happy.
Yeah, it's great.
And I guess my one other question is your Fender Princeton Chorus 25.5 watt amplifier, which is 51 watts in overdrive. Do you ever turn it up to 11?
Believe it or not, I did many years ago. A place where I worked, I was able to go into the building on the weekends where I believed that no one was there. And so it was a very large room, and I was able to kick it up just to see what it could do. So yes, I have taken it up to 11, maybe a little bit more, 11 and a half. I don't know. But yeah, I will tell you though that for the longest time, I couldn't figure out how do musicians create songs. how do they know what chords to use and what notes to play? And at that time, we didn't have the internet. But when it came about, I began to search out things that I could find about music theory to see if that would tell me anything. And I learned about scales and chords. And I don't know if you've ever heard the Do Re Mi song.
Oh, yes.
Well,
Do.
that is the major musical scale. So those are the notes for the musical scale. And if I could just demonstrate real quickly, like for the key of A, I don't know if you were able to hear that.
We were.
So
We
that's
did,
do, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So that's what that song is all about. And what was really interesting is that the first, third, and fifth notes in that scale, which is an A, C sharp, and an E. Though when you strum those three notes together, you get the A chord, which is the first major chord in the major A scale. If you then take the next set of three, that is the second, fourth, and sixth note in the major A scale, you'll get the B minor chord. And then you continue along in that pattern, and eventually what you'll get is the 7 major chords for a major scale. So for example, in the A major scale, the 1, 4, 5 chords are A, D, and E. And so what I found out is that some rock and roll songs use that set of chords, the 1, 4, and 5, to create their songs. And so that was kind of an epiphany for me. For example, the one that I was doing earlier, that's the G. And then he goes to a C. And then finally to a D. And so G, C, and D happen to be the 1, 4, and 5 chords for the G major scale. So that was something that I found out. And like I say, that was kind of an epiphany. All of a sudden, music theory made sense. And I understood that these musicians were using these musical rules to create songs that really sounded good. So that was a big thing for me. And that's kind of what I do, is I'll find these chords, figure out what scale they're in and what kind of notes go along with those, and I'll experiment, and through trial and error, I can come up with something that sounds okay to me.
Sounds like a great process. Yeah, it sounds wonderful.
Yeah, now I'm not a professional by any means, but
Yeah.
those folks who have years of experience and are professional guitarists, it becomes like second nature. So
Right.
they're able to produce these songs very quickly. And
Right.
so that was really a big thing for me to kind of stumble across that. So thank you, Al Gore, or whoever invented the internet,
Yeah.
because it provided me with all of this good information and really helped me along the road.
And thank you, Nicholas, for coming in. I've got a couple of press releases that I need to read for next week. So, but thank you so much. A wonderful show. Really appreciate, Sharon really appreciates you being on. She was so excited for days. So, when Nicholas, when Nick.
Well, thank you so much, and my best to everyone. Everybody have a fantastic day.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you so much. It was great speaking with you. Yep.
Coming up on CBC on Saturday at 8 p.m. on Absolutely Canadian, there's a documentary. It's called Life Up North. And it's called Upik, Little Village in the Arctic, directed by Tiffany Ayelet and Kylek Couson-Taylor. Follows Couson-Taylor, his daughter Indigo, and his crew in the creation of an off-the-grid community and farm that is rooted in indigenous methods of hunting, foraging, using local materials and traditional knowledge. Christian Taylor, an Inuit Christian hunter, attempts to reestablish and reimagine the lost practice of building a traditional Inuit log cabin with the intention of creating housing security and an opportunity for language and cultural revitalization in its traditional territory of Beeffield Delta. And I want to say that next week after that, and hopefully people will watch that one on CBC, we're very excited to interview the filmmaker, director, and singer, Tiffany Ayilek, with a new film from Copple Porch Media. And recording on August 8th, our radio show team will include Ariadne Sawyer, host and featuring a special co-host, Kara Michelle Yupik, as well as our team. Broadcast will be on Nextcloud and Co-op Radio, and it will premiere on Saturday. And we're really, really excited about it. And Tiffany, actually did a concert in Victoria in Beacon Hill Park. She's also a singer. And my daughter will be co-hosting with me. And she actually got to meet her a couple of days ago at Beacon Hill Park. And they're both in Inuit in BC series Facebook page. So it's very exciting. Thanks to Nicola Pender of Pender PR for putting us together. And the other announcement I have is from the Fringe Festival. The second here. And this is Michelle Merlin. And some of us, she's been on World Poetry a lot in the past. After 2 years of being stymied by the pandemic, the Vancouver Fringe Festival is returning with live theater this year from September 8th to 18th. In venues scattered around Granville Island area, over 70 performing artists will be presenting their unique show. One of the lucky performers chosen is a story poet who has been featured several times in the past on the World Poetry Cafe. Her name is Michelle Merlin, and she will be presenting a wonderful story in verse called The Songbird of Vienna. Set in the late 1800s in the glittering capital of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the story of a struggling composer named Franz. And more about him. I don't have her date times, and it's in the works, but she's going to be coming on the show when we know that. And I guess that's it. Please try to watch the CBC documentary Saturday at 8 p.m. And I think next week will be pretty exciting to have this filmmaker and Inuit filmmaker and on the show, and musician and singer. So I think I'm going to wait on my Pastora stories, some feedback on the radio, just for next year's as well. In letters coming into me, sharing stories are sort of the most commented on. And that's kind of cool. And I think that's really nice for her to know as well, because it makes her feel happy in all this isolation that we've been going through. So I wanted to thank Nicholas Krill and Victor and Kelly. Great show. And next week we have Inuit singer and filmmaker. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ariadne. And Kelly Montgomery, do you have a final poem for us today?
I happen to. It's called Do the Math. All is well. I hate pressure. It disrupts my day. Then things change, and then I am okay. I am rarely disappointed, even when I feel pressed to follow, and I don't feel I have choice. Such a hard thing to swallow. I guess it is all a part of what I become, and that it will always add up. Perfect is this song.
Very nice, very nice. Thank you very much, Kelly Montgomery.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a short piece of my own to read, which was just published in Wink magazine, so I guess that's why I'm reading it, but it isn't very long. It's called A Slave of Property. Harriet wasted her invaluable time on Earth at a job. The only reason she stuck with the job was because it enabled her to buy possessions to help her recover from the job. This circular nature of her life worried her. So one evening, she pushed all of her possessions into a big pile in the living room and set them on fire. She then moved away from the big city and built a hut in the woods. Water came from a nearby stream, food from her garden, clothes from the plants around her. It was not an easy life, but she enjoyed it. Word eventually got out about the wonderfully strange woman who lived in the woods without possessions. Soon people began to visit. They sought her advice on life. Harriet told them to burn all their possessions. No one followed her advice, but they all felt better just thinking about it. Over the years, Harriet became a tourist attraction. Thousands visited her seeking answers. To answer their questions, she raised money to publish books about the dangers of consumerism by starting a gift shop, Natural Harriet's, where she sold collectibles. And that is my story that was in Wink magazine. Everyone, you've been listening to the World Poetry Cafe on CFRO FM 100.5. Now, I'm going to take a moment to explain to listeners who listen to the station as opposed to Mixcloud, we still have ongoing problems. Last week, you would have heard two shows played at the same time, which was definitely a new problem that we've never had before. Yeah, the station can't explain it. Certainly we can. What listeners should know is that we're trying as hard as we can to do a brand new show every week that's of high quality. And because of the problems with the station, until it resolves these issues, certainly we're posting on Mixcloud. So if you go to Mixcloud, M-I-X Cloud, on the internet and type in World Poetry Cafe, you will find us 2 or 3 months of shows, and that way you can listen. But we also want to be broadcasting live on the station, so if there have been problems, that's why. And now that I've said all that, to conclude our show, here is a brand new poem from Malaka Ben.
I Hoped for a Better World by Malik Ahmed. I hoped for a better world after a messy pandemic hit by COVID-19. After all those isolations for quarantine, lockdown, wearing hand gloves and a mask, practicing social distancing, and after digesting the pains of losing more than 6 million lives around the world, I hoped for a better world with better humans, more sympathetic and empathic to each other. I hope to see a united world fighting against deadly diseases, climate change, poverty, and hunger. But before the world could fully recover from COVID-19, the powerful Russian army invaded Ukraine. Now, humans are killing humans. And the rest of the world is like, go, buddy, go, and fight hard. I wonder, where are the diplomatic efforts to stop the war? To stop the bloodshed and the killing of the innocent people? And to stop the spread of this war so that the doomsday clock can't hit midnight? I hoped for a better world after the messy pandemic hit by COVID-19, but it was only just a dream.
And that was another fine poem from Malik Ahmed. Thank you so much. Thank you to Nicholas Curl, C-U-R-L. You can find his work on YouTube very easily just by typing in Nicholas Curl. Thank you to Ellie Montgomery, to Ariadne Sawyer, and to Sharon Rowe, of course, and of course, thanks to me. You have been listening to the World Poetry Cafe on CFRO FM 100.5. We also are available on Mixcloud. We do hope to get our station broadcast problems resolved, so just hang in there with us. We are struggling real hard. Everybody wants to make it work. Thank you so much for listening today to the World Poetry Cafe. Another great show next week, and meanwhile, make tomorrow a better day than today.